Hey YouTube, it's Grant. I'm making a video for you guys today. It's a Commander deck tech about Vial Smasher the Fierce and Sakashina of 1,000 Faces. With this deck, what we're trying to do is put as many copies of Sakashima out on the field that also copies Vial Smasher, and trying to sling as much damage as we can using Vial Smasher's ability. We have damage doublers and a lot of clone abilities in here. You know, there's a lot of hype around this deck on YouTube, and it totally merits the hype because it's a fantastic deck. And if you like spell slinging over combat steps, you absolutely should build this deck. Plus, it's in Nico Bolas color, so how cool is that? You feel like Nico Bolas. Let's go over what the commanders do real fast. So, Vial Smasher says, whenever you cast your first spell each turn, choose an opponent at random. Vial Smasher the Fierce deals damage equal to that spell's converted mana cost to that player or a planeswalker that player controls. And it's got partner. So, yeah, whenever you cast your spell, your first spell, he slings out damage at random. And then, of course, you got Sakashima. It says, you may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it's still Sakashima's ability. The legend rule doesn't apply to permanents. So that means you can copy legendary people like Vial Smasher. And the more Vial Smashers you have, the better. If you've ever had anybody play with Vial Smasher before, in like a Vial Smasher Timna, Vial Smasher Thrasios, Vial Smasher whatever, he's very, very, very strong. So having two of them is fantastic. So yeah, the hype is real, and I've seen a lot of people in the community on like YouTube and EDH Rec and stuff like that putting out deck lists, and I have some disagreements, a lot of agreements, and I have some pet cards I think they should be running. In my testing, they seem to do really well, but for the most part, we've all came to an agreement on what this deck should be, and I've built it so you guys can see. What we're trying to do is get as many copies out and then do as much damage as we can by often doubling the damage here, or just splashing extra damage around with something like Fire Emancipation or Karavek the Merciless. So right now I'm running 11 ramp. I'm using a lot of artifact ramp because there's no green, and I have a couple creatures that ramp as well. But just for the ramp, let's go through that. I'm running Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Thought Vessel. Then the rest of these are just going to be talismans and signets, because it's what we got. So talisman, creativity. You know, the talismans are really good. I think these are fantastic, and I can't complain about them. Even not having green, you know, there's been so many recent artifacts printed that it's not a big deal. Like ramp is not a big deal. Next, why don't we go into artifacts and enchantments? I'm running 9 artifacts and enchantments, so almost 10, and here's the little package. We're running Ristic Study, Leyline of Anticipation. So one thing I should mention is that because, you know, Vial Smasher says I can do it on other people's turns for his ability to proc, you really do want to play stuff on other people's turns to get the most out of them. And I am running quite a big flash and instant package of 20 different cards, but having Leyline of Anticipation and Vidalcan Orrery really helps just make sure that you're... one game, I got Leyline in my first hand. I played it on the battlefield. I also had Mana Crypt and Soul Ring. Or no, Mana Crypt and a Talisman. So I had enough mana to play, like, before my turn even started, I had enough mana to, like, drop my hand, essentially. So with Leyline, fantastic card. It basically lets you cast spells as though they had flash. Vidalcan Orrery does the same thing. I'm running, this is Russian, it's Mirage Mirror. Sorry, you can't read it, but I'll tell you what it does. For 2 mana, you can have it copy a permanent on the battlefield. So that lets you do their artifacts and enchantments as well as copy, of course, Sakashima. So this is really useful. It's one of the best copy spells in here because you can take one of your opponent's things if they have a Ristic Study or something you want. There you go. I'm running Wound Reflection. So this doubles damage. Fire Emancipation. This triples damage, so it's very good. This is a pet card of mine. There's not a lot of flying defense for all your copies, so this is just kind of to give you a little bit of defense here. This is something that I would probably trade out if I found something I wanted to run, but so far it was really, really useful the game I got it because you're super vulnerable to people like Kali the Vast and Angels. These are fantastic. Ophidian Eye and Curiosity. This is flash, so that's something important to note. But basically, you enchant your creature, and whenever an enchanted creature deals damage to your opponent, you draw a card. This costs 1 mana, does the exact same thing, but doesn't have flash. So anytime that your Vial Smasher procs off, you get to draw a card. And what's really nice about this is if you have Curiosity, and you're running a lot of dumb spells like Brainstorm, or, you know, just smaller counter spells, stuff like that, within 1 turn rotation, you can draw 4 cards. So this is really, really good, and absolutely like a must-have in this deck. Next, let's go into the instants. Now, I do have some flashcards in the creatures as well. You know what's really funny? My buddy James, he's like, dude, you're running so many flashcards. He's like, they should make a sorcery with flash. And I was like, that's just an instant. But yeah, that made me laugh. I was like, dude, a sorcery with flash. Anyways. No, that wasn't James. That was David. Anyways, it was still really dumb. And anyways, that's one of the top funny things I've heard in Magic. So, anyways, Electro Dominance lets me deal X damage to any target. You can cast it a card from your hand with the extra less mana cost, so it doubles up, and this could easily sling out 8 damage. And then who knows how many times you're doubling it up. I'm running a lot of counter spells here. I want to kind of cheat them so I can get that free mana cost. So I'm running Force of Negation and Force of Will. Having 5 mana cost and then being able to cast it for free is super nice. Mana Drain, so I have some more mana to pay. The more mana you have, the more spells you can sling, right? Fierce Guardianship, you can play it for free. I'm running Kolaghan's Command just because I really like having those options. And most of the time it's just destroying target artifact. But, you know, sometimes you can return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, which is nice too, for only 3 mana. Sublime Epiphany, another modal card that I think is a must-have in this deck. So you can either counter a spell, draw a card. You can choose all. Actually, you can do all of them. So you can counter a spell, counter an activated ability or triggered, return target non-land permanent to its hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature. You get a copy off of this, and you draw a card. And the 6 mana also, like I said, on somebody else's turn is going to proc off. So this is a fantastic card, even though it seems expensive. So we got Dig Through Time. This is great because it costs 8 mana to play, but you're going to cast it for 3 and sling out 8 damage multiplied. I'm running Brainstorm, Mystic Confluence, Cyclonic Rift, Deflecting Swat, and Chaos Warp, and then lastly Vampiric Tutor. So those are my instants. Let's get into my sorceries here, which if I wish these sorceries had flash, which they do if you have a Vidalcan Orrery. So we're going to go Torment of Hailfire, just because the bigger spell numbers, that's great. This is a double finisher. When you've got 3 or 4 Sakashina Vial Smashers on the field, and you cast this for 8 mana, and you're already making every single opponent lose 3 life, 6 times, and then not on top of that, all the Vial Smashers are slinging out damage. This can obviously be a finisher, and it has in many decks before. Running Demonic Tutor, Quasi Duplicate. This is a really cool card because it costs 3 mana for a copy, and then you can bring it back to do it again. So this is fantastic. One of the MVPs. This is kind of a card that's more of a pet card, but I like it because you always have legendaries. So just take an extra turn. Blasphemous Act, another example of something with a huge mana cost, but you're going to cheat it in for probably like 3 mana, and then you're going to just sling out 9 damage to everybody for all your copies. Running Ponder. Treasure Cruise, another big mana cost. That's going to be kind of a thing here. Preordain, and then Rite of Replication, which I've never been able to get the kicker off, but it would be like kind of like a achievement in this deck if you can cast a Rite of Replication kicked, and you can get that 5 copies of Vial Smasher. That would be fantastic and something that would be totally fun to do, but it's not happened to me. I'm running Phyrexian Metamorph. So these are some of my copy spells, and I put the best ones up front. So I'm running anything that costs 3. Even though that this is like expensive and this is insanely cheap, this is really great because it's a 3 mana spell. We got Phyrexian Metamorph, Mirror Image. This is another one that's great because it's also a land, so it takes up a land slot. And it's a 3 mana, have a copy, a creature. So this is really cool. Orvar, this is from Kaldheim. This is fantastic too. So whenever you cast one of your sorceries that targets your creatures, you get another copy of Sakashina. So whenever you cast a copy spell, like Rite of Replication, you're basically giving yourself another. It doubles up the permanents. So Evil Twin is a copy, and it also can be removal. Clever Impersonator, just basically a clone. But it can be any non-land permanent, so that's kind of nice. Sakashima, this is a copy, but you can also return it to your hand. And this is weird too. It's not going to happen, but it could happen. If you have Dockside Extortionist and then you copy it with Sakashima, you're going to get a bunch of treasure tokens. And then you can use some of those treasure tokens to return Sakashima, the imposter, to its owner's hand. Then you can play it again, copying. But you really need a lot of artifacts on the battlefield and enchantments for it to even work. But technically you could get infinite mana. Not that there's really anything you could do with it. But the infinite treasure tokens, I guess, are nice so that if you're drawing a lot of cards, you can just put them out. But like I said, it would be pretty insane to have that happen, and it's unlikely. But it could. Stunt Double. And then, of course, clone. Just the worst clone spell because it only does creatures and it costs 4. And it's a creature. It's not even a spell. So, yeah, this is, if I was to take out one clone spell, it'd probably be this one. As far as flash, I'm running Opposition Agent, which I kind of consider this as draw because in my play group, when they have a lot of tutors and stuff, I get their cards. It's just card advantage. Hull Breacher, I consider this ramp. Notion Thief, I consider this card draw too, even though it's expensive. And this is also one of those cards I wanted to point out as an MVP. So you know those medallions are really expensive. They're an artifact that says like Jet Medallion. It's like $30 or something, and it's all black spells, cost one less to cast, right? Well, this is like a double medallion because it says blue spells and red spells cost 1 less to cast. And since it has Regenerate, it's really hard to get rid of for your opponents. So it's great. It's 2 mana for a double medallion. This is an MVP, and I think that if you're running this deck, this is a must-have. Running Dockside Extortionist for more ramp. So these are some of the ways that I sling some extra damage besides Wound Reflection and Fiery Emancipation. This is a pet card of mine. You're not going to get you're going to cheat it out. You're going to pay 1 mana for it, but you're not going to have it trigger off of all your copies because by the time you've already dealt damage, that means they've already procced. But basically it's 6 mana and it says it costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. It's got trample and it's a 6/6. So already you're getting a 1-drop trample 6/6. Pretty good, but this is where it's really great. So whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to opponent, it deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker. So every single time one of your Vial Smashers procs, it's going to proc her, and it's basically a mini one-sided board wipe. This is fantastic. It's really, really great. So it just controls the board, and I think more people should run this, and it's really inexpensive too. I'm running Obosh because I don't know if you knew, it says that creatures with odd converted mana cost deal double damage. So basically Vial Smasher costs 3. It's just a doubler up for your tokens. I'm running Karavik the Merciless. It's expensive, and I haven't had him come out yet in the games I've played, so I'm still wondering. He's really cool, but he's really expensive, so I just don't know if he's worth it, really, but we'll see. If I get him, he might be really fun. I'm running Dualcaster Mage. I'm running Kess, just to get some those spells back. Anybody knows that's ever played with Krenko, if you've ever had a friend that plays goblins and has Krenko, since Vial Smasher is a goblin, just tapping this 1 or 2 times can make an insane board. So this is a really cool card, and you should run it. Ashiok, of course, is just something that pisses off the table because they're not going to be able to fetch. And lastly is lands. Now, I think something that's important to know with this, we're running a lot of delve cards to cheat on mana cost, so it's really important to run fetch lands, and that's really expensive. Honestly, if you wanted to make a cheap version of this deck, it would still be strong because the copies aren't that expensive. If you, say, got the commanders from opening packs or whatever, which I did. I opened a lot of Commander Legends packs. So, yeah, this is expensive, but I guess you could run like Terramorphic Expanses and stuff like that. But it's really important to get that graveyard as full as possible for Delve. So we're running Bloodstained Mire, Wooded Foothills, Scalding Tarn, Polluted Delta, Prismatic Vista, Arid Mesa, Misty Rainforest. Basically anything that I had, I put it into this deck. So I had to scalp all of my other decks and put proxies into those while I use these. I'm using Luxury Suite, which I do want to turn this into a Steam Vents. But I am running that as of right now. I'm running Refracting Pool, Watery Grave, Blood Crypt, Crumbling Necropolis, which I would like to get the Ikoria land. I think there's an Ikoria version. I'm not sure. The Triome, if there's a Triome for this, I'd prefer to get that. Shivan Reef, Command Tower, Reliquary Tower, Fiery Islet, Exotic Orchard. I'm running Training Center, and then the rest I think are regular basics. Yeah, so I'm running 6 mountains, 5 swamps, and then the rest islands here. It looks like I'm running 6 islands as well. So that's the lands. Like I said, it's really important to fill up your graveyard. And one thing I talked about in another video, I guess if you were just wanting to see the deck tech, this is where the video ends. I have a couple copies here. I run proxies that I make, and I want to show you what they look like. So, yeah, let me grab one of these. Let's see, Arid Mesa. So here's what they look like. And for the video, I obviously moved around. So here's a proxy I made, and it's very clear. Nobody's going to trade for this. I'm not trying to fool anybody. You can clearly see that it's glued on top of another magic card. It's just something I printed. You can see. But My friends know about it, and they're totally cool with me using proxies of cards that I already own, just because I do not want to buy a bunch of Arid Maces or Demonic Tutors. And the one thing that I think lets them respect me for using it is because I don't actually put fetch lands in every single deck I own. I don't put Demonic Tutors in every black deck I own. But in this deck, I think it's really important to fill up the graveyard, and this is also one of the more competitive decks I have. So I might use proxies in this, I might use these proxies elsewhere, but I do own a copy of everything. So what I think I'm going to start doing is once I just have a regular printer I got for $50. I started printing the cards, cutting them out, and then gluing them to the fronts of lands, and then I could even just put the real cards in here, put the proxies in, and then swap them back and forth. So if you have cards that you really wish you could put into different decks, get a printer, ask your friends, always talk to your friends, and then just say, hey, can I put the real version of the card inside this little mini binder I have? And then when I draw the Arid Mesa in game and I play it, I can switch it out with the real card if you want. But my friends, they just don't care. They're just like, use the proxies. You don't have to go through the trouble of switching them out. We know that you own the cards that you have. And even sometimes I've proxied cards I didn't have before that I was planning to get, but I didn't want to spend $30 on a card and then think, oh, you know what, this doesn't actually work in the deck that well, but I bought the card, so I was like, that's too expensive to play test. So anyways, you guys, have a good day. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe. Tell me what you think should be changed. If you're making a Sakashima deck and you have some like secrets of cards that you should be putting, I think I should be putting in, let me know down in the comments below. And thanks for watching.